Korea Women Mean Business is a Victorian organisation with members from metro, regional, and remote areas. We are delivering this virtual to you from Kulin Lands, so we acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging. We would also like to acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of the land. We acknowledge their continuing connection to country and give our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, from wherever they may be viewing this virtual event.
Hi, and welcome to the Exhale program virtual sessions. As you would know, pandemic has kind of thrown us through a loop at the moment. So a lot of our content that would be face-to-face, we're now delivering virtually online. So this session is bookkeeping versus accounting with my bookkeeper or accountant, Sarah Hyland from Together Business. So as you know, my name's Jaynaya Winmar. I'm the founder of Blackbone Sisterhood. I'm a Noongar Balladong woman from WA. I've lived on for the last 20 odd years, and I've been in and around the employment and recruiting industry for the majority of those years. Over the last 2 years, stepped out to do the entrepreneurial game, as they say, and own 2 businesses myself. So yeah, it's been an interesting change, and I think one of the biggest challenges I have had has been accounting and bookkeeping, and Sarah will probably go, yes, you do. So a bit of housekeeping as well. So we would also like to acknowledge our traditional owners of the land on which we stand on. We predominantly work in Naarm, but we have women from all over Australia that have joined us virtually on our different platforms. So we thank you all and acknowledge the country of which you stand on as well. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we are proud of the leaders of today with where we stand now. So thank you all for your countries and sharing where you're from and who your mob is. So a bit about today's agenda. We're going to be working on discussing bookkeeping and what that's about, and a bit about accounting and what's that about and the differences with both. And then talking to Sarah about business advisors and what that entails, and like breaking it down and making it less fluffy in that regard. So that's what I love about Sarah, because she makes it less fluffy. But then if you needed to have the extra fluff on there, she will kind of add that onto what you're delivering. So thank you so much, Sarah, again for coming on with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be coming to you today from beautiful Larrakia country, up in a much hotter part of the country. It's definitely heating up here. I am an Anaiwan woman from the Northern Tablelands of New South Wales. I'm the founder of Together Business, which is one of only a handful of Indigenous accounting firms in the country. I'm trained as an accountant. I worked in accounting, in and around it, and I clashed big time with it. So, Together Business is really me breaking it down, making it real. At Together Business, it's really about humanizing accounting and business advice and explaining things in a really easy and attainable way. And so that's the vision behind Together Business. And hopefully today we can break down a few of those, things that the profession often, as Jaynaya say, fluffs up or intentionally makes confusing. To really just break it down to what it is. And hope you get something out of it.
So I have actually met Sarah through the Indigenous Business Happy Hour, so which she was referred to us from another Indigenous business who we were doing work with. So that's how I jumped on board. So it's all about that networking, and when we find another Indigenous business, we kind of support them as well as ourselves on that journey. So I think that's what drew me to yourself, Sarah, and what you do. It's not just that you're in that amazing business space. It's just that making it more real for our mob is what we're all about. So if we can talk to someone that understands not just us but our business, that's an added bonus. And I think that's really important for us to remember going through this, because naturally we're not kind of in that dollar value mindset, and accounting and bookkeeping is probably the last thing that we do. And I know it's the last thing I always do is my invoices and all of that. I have amazing corporate partners that go, hey, you haven't sent us an invoice for this yet. It's because I shy away from that. So I know a lot of other businesses also have that same issue. So thank you so much for linking up with us today.
My pleasure.
So what we would like to cover in bookkeeping today is, as the name suggests, bookkeeping is an activity.
To start with a bit of scene setting, I know, so as Jaynaya, as you've just said, the dollar side of things doesn't often come intuitively to us. And the way I tend to explain the necessity of bookkeeping and accounting in business. So, you know, we have been doing business for centuries. And, you know, from a strengths basis, we consider things in business that no one else does and doesn't know how to. You know, we consider the impact on the environment naturally, how what we're doing has flow-on effects. And so just want to start by acknowledging that. And in the context of business, when we start talking about accounting and numbers and bookkeeping, I often refer to it as like the foundation level of a hierarchy of needs. So without the financial strength on the base, when unable to, so a lot of us start our own business to, you know, create some sort of impact or change in our world or communities. And so if you think of it as a hierarchy of needs, without that base financial level, you can't actually move up the hierarchy to achieve the social impact that you're wanting to achieve. And so that's the premise that I always start on, is that's why this stuff is important. And that's just the overarching thing before we get into actually what is bookkeeping, accounting, and the difference between that. I guess all of these things in combination is that financial base level of your business. And without that, so I often talk about sustainable business. And when I talk about sustainability, I'm not just talking about numbers, but also for ourselves, because in business, if we're not making money and we're not being able to pay ourselves and running ourselves into the ground, that's not sustainable for us. And so we need to be sustaining ourselves. As women, we, you know, sustain, you know, our families, the people around us, our community. And so, you know, it's just another level of something we need to be very on top of for all aspects of our well-being, because naturally, if the dollars are adding up, then there's one less thing to stress out about at the end of the day. So bookkeeping at a high level is just the process of organising your records. It really is record keeping. So when you go to the shops, you get a receipt, that's your record. And so the process of bookkeeping is bringing all those records together. We live in an age where technology does a lot of these things for us. Back in the day, this used to take days and weeks, but it's really not the reality anymore. And so I'd like to also say that this stuff doesn't need to be intimidating, and there are solutions that make it really simple now. So as an example, there's software out there, really affordable for the time saving that that you'll get from it, that allows you to, so I've made a note there that and just for your information, that the ATO's stance is that technically anything you buy that's over $82.50, you should be keeping a receipt for that, in case they come knocking one day and they can ask you for that. So again, there's softwares, and the software that I use is Xero, that help you keep a track of those incomes and expenses. We can digitize all our receipts. When we get invoices digitally, we can store them in the system as well. And so in the true essence of us, I guess that name, bookkeeping starts and ends with collecting everything. It's like collecting all the information we need. It's that gathering stage, which is where it leads into accounting. So if you think of bookkeeping as the gathering, accounting is where you start to sift through it. So bookkeeping will give you a collection of information, and where that transitions into accounting is where, say, an accountant would come in and review the bookkeeping, and the accountant is trained in the taxation laws. So the role of the accountant is to apply the taxation laws to the bookkeeping records, make adjustments so that the records are compliant with those laws. We also have international accounting standards that kind of ensure that everyone's financial records are uniform. So say, for example, I was comparing Jaynaya's and my financial statements, where that makes sure we're comparing apples and apples. Because if Jaynaya did her bookkeeping her way and I did it my way, like we could be comparing, watermelons and nothing else.
Exactly. Sarah, I'm renowned for having my invoices or receipts and throwing them in my handbag. Do you have a strategy that is easier, or would kind of, if I implemented, it would work better for me?
Yeah. So there's a number of expense management softwares on the market that integrate perfectly into Xero. One in particular is, so it is actually a Xero product. It's a separate login and everything, but it's a Xero product and it's free with your Xero subscription. It's called HubDoc. And so you set it up, you'll get a unique email address that you can, forward anything from your inbox to. And you also have an app on your phone. So when you're at the shops and you get, your invoice, your receipt, you just take a photo and then it can go in the bin. And that then, it's a digital filing cabinet. That's actually what it is. So that receipt will be stored for the legal amount of time that it's supposed to. And then the really cool part is because it's connected to Xero, that information can flow into Xero. And then when, so in bookkeeping software, it's linked to your bank account, so you can see every single bank transaction as you would when you were looking at a bank statement. And bookkeeping is the process of tallying up those income and expenses. So it's no longer a manual process. If you were writing it on paper, you'd have to be on the calculator and adding it up. But it's doing all that behind the scenes. And what that means is that, so Jaynaya's just bought a coffee for a business meeting, and then that $4.50 comes out of her bank account. The software does its magic and it says, Jaynaya bought a coffee here, here's the receipt, and here's the money that came out of her bank account. And then done, process done.
And I love that reconcile option that it picks up. Like if you've done lots of coffee, as I do, it kind of recognizes where it goes, and so you don't have to think about where to put it anymore, whether it's like entertainment or stationary goods, like all of that stuff. It picks up that you use it a lot, so that's where it goes. So yeah, Xero is amazing.
Yeah, so as we were saying, bookkeeping is what allows us to get to the accounting stage. So that collection of all the records. And just, also something that would fall within bookkeeping is the process of paying your employees and making sure that you are withholding the right amount of tax and paying them the right super. It's those kind of calculations and records, again, that you're maintaining for that point where you do get an accountant to then apply the next level of checks and balances.
So accounting, the next stage of this one. Sarah, can you tell us about accounting, because this is your field? I kind of do a little bit of bookkeeping.
So at the end of the day, like we were saying before, Jaynaya's bought a lot of coffee this year. She doesn't know how much, but, at the end of a period, it can be any period. I guess the interesting point to make about software is that bookkeeping and accounting can become one and the same. If your books are up to date, you can be doing this stuff all the time. And I certainly work and view this as an ongoing thing rather than something you go and visit someone once a year about. And as we'll talk about a bit later, it really comes down to personal preference and how much you want your professional advisor in this section. And then the work of an accountant is, as I mentioned, applying those taxation laws, making adjustments. A big a trap that people can fall into is thinking, oh yeah, it's really easy, I can do it myself. And like the reality is you could, but the consequence of getting it wrong is quite large. And so even on the bookkeeping side, it's always good to understand, at the end of the day, an accountant will rely on the information you've given to them through your bookkeeping records, as we spoke about. And so, it's worth being mindful that, there are large consequences for not getting this stuff right. And I would recommend at the very minimum to talk to an accountant, and I will touch on this later about, where do I start in finding this right professional for me.
So this right professional, tell us more.
Yeah, so I want to just touch on something that I find a lot of people I work with often say to me, I've tried so many people, I've had so many different conversations, everyone tells me a different thing. And this is the whole reason why this whole conversation about bookkeeping and accounting is really important. At the end of the day, a bookkeeper is a bookkeeper and an accountant is an accountant. And so I wanted to differentiate between the two and explain what a business advisor is, because a business advisor can zoom in to a particular, where you are at personally. Whereas, by contrast, if you went to speak to an accountant, they would, be directing you, an accountant that wasn't also a business advisor. So you can be a business advisor accountant, you could be a business advisor bookkeeper, although that's less common. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. And if we go to the next slide, the thing I would, sorry, can we go to the next one and then we'll come back to that one? Yes. So I like to make the analogy of looking for an accountant or a business advisor to when you're trying to find a new hairdresser. So we all know that when you find that right hairdresser, you don't want to let go of them because it's really hard to find someone who suits your style. So I still am struggling to find a hairdresser in Darwin. I've been living up here for 6 years. I think I'm just about to get there, and then I'm like, oh, I wasn't so pleased with that. And so, approach this stuff like an ongoing relationship too. And you might have to try a few different advisors or bookkeepers to find out what's going to suit you. And just like you would when you go to a hairdresser or you're sussing them out on socials or, reading their reviews, you'd want to ask things like, do you want them to, play that creative role with you? Do you want them to give you advice? So in the bookkeeping and accounting context, do you want them to be like, here's some ideas on how you could do things differently? Or, we could do this to save you more tax. Or do you just want plain Jane just cuts, go in, get your hair done, out? The equivalent in the accounting and bookkeeping industry would be your H&R blocks. So just as there's a big spectrum in hairdressing as well, you've got your primo and your in and out kind of thing. The same spectrum exists within accounting and bookkeeping. And this is, I think, why people can find it so challenging to find the right person. And, bookkeeping and accounting sounds so simple, but until you realize the breadth of, the profession and what people do and don't do, it's kind of a process of learning the right questions to ask, and also not being afraid to say, I want someone who can sit down with me and explain this, or I just want someone to do my tax, and then you can start creating your own checklist of what you're looking for in an advisor, bookkeeper, or accountant.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing that I struggled with, is finding that that perfect bookkeeper, accountant, because like you're going into a business and you're going, I did my own tax for years because I didn't have anything. I didn't have a business, but now stepping into that business space, you're kind of going, I have to actually give this to someone else because I'm not equipped for this. But then it's also like that ownership handover going, I don't want people to judge me if I've done a crap job. Like it's that honest factor, like finding someone that isn't going to judge you for the fact that you might have forgotten an invoice, you might have put it into the wrong category. So some of those issues are really important too, is like finding an accountant that's going to have that conversation with you, but then also taking the value away, like to the accountant, going, yeah, this person kind of knows what they're doing, so I need to start thinking about things a little bit differently, like the using the app as opposed to trying to keep all my invoices or receipts, because they tend up to be a mushed up pile in the bottom of your handbag. Whereas if I take a photo of them beforehand, that I won't lose it. So yeah, I think that's really important, finding someone that you can relate with, but then you can also share your business with, because you are pretty much sharing part of yourself.
Definitely, particularly in our, in our spaces, in our sector, that a lot of our businesses are passion projects. It is a part of ourselves. And so it can naturally feel very exposing, particularly when you need to expose your business to a professional that may not share the sensitivity or respect for what you're doing. It's an ongoing thing.
And which slide did you want to head back to? Where to start?
Yeah, where to start. And so I say these 3 things to any new business that's starting out, and they're kind of the criteria that I go through when I'm talking to a particular business, to find out if they're set up in a way that can, as a bare minimum, this is what we need to start putting in good systems and processes. So you need an ABN if you're running a business. So the Australian Business Registry website is where you'd head to for that. I always say to people, make sure you have a separate bank account open. It doesn't matter if it's a personal bank account and you just create another one. Have a bank account where all of your business income and expenses come out of. So get a little debit card for it and keep everything in your business separate to your personal stuff. That will make your life so much easier in the future, I promise you. And as we've mentioned before, use a bookkeeping software such as Xero. And so they're my little sprinkles of wisdom for you today.
And I think it's good too, because like even registering for your ABN number, knowing what you're going to register your business as before you go in to get your ABN number, because there's sole traders, there's company businesses, so it's kind of doing that research beforehand. And if I know we'll probably speak out a little bit later, but we've also got options for our businesses to catch up with you on that one-on-one session too, to have these kind of conversations, because it is difficult when you're going in and you don't know what to register your business as, to understand that from Sarah prior to doing that, or in the middle process of you've got it all set up, but how does it work? And I think that's the fun thing, because I struggled with setting that up myself, and going, this is probably like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm in survival mode. So having the ability to have someone now, definitely follow the links and we'll add them to our chat, and then we can hook you up with Sarah and have those conversations.
Yeah, it's really a minefield of information a lot of the time, Jaynaya. And yeah, so like there's all these different types of entities, and really it's a particular structure might suit you. So for example, your sole traders and partnerships are where you would start out. And as things grow, as things get more complicated, it's also your business advisor and your accountant that you'd be having these conversations with about, they're the people you want to be able to get on the phone to and say, is it time for me to start a company? Or am I cool to keep doing this? And, take into account all different factors in your life that will impact that decision. So it's not straightforward. It is a bit of a matrix of, all different fun things. So yes, happy to have that conversation with any of you.
Awesome. And I think we've got the resources section. So as Sarah was talking about the Xero advisory directory, I don't know if you want to speak to these a little bit better than me, because you've worked in them.
Yeah, so I find these resources really good in that you can search for your area. So if you're particularly looking for someone who is local that you can go into an office, these directories are all location specific. So you can look for someone in your area, or you could just more generally look for someone with a specialization. So for example, if you're an artist, you might want to search the Xero advisor directory for an advisor. And in this context, an advisor can be either a bookkeeper or accountant in Xero. So both bookkeepers and accountants are referred to as Xero advisors or partners. And so, yeah, you can also look for a specialization in your particular industry if you feel like there's some really specific things that you need to discuss with that person. And then also, I've got the directories listed there for Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand, and CPA Australia, which are the two bodies. So there's two bodies in Australia that recognise professional accountants, and so there's a directory also geo-linked to where you are to have a look at and start the journey of finding someone for you.
Awesome, thank you for those resources. So as we mentioned, we are being a little bit more versatile with our delivery, and thank you, Sarah, for being so versatile, and it kind of allows us to have you as a resource because you're based in Darwin, as we said. So our Canva basics and social media that SoFi will be running, we will add these links into our social platform. So on whether it's Facebook or Instagram, we will have the dates and times on there, but just letting you know these are the things that we will be delivering on. Yarning and weaving, this was going to be a face-to-face delivery in Albury. Because of the border changes, we're kind of waiting to see what that looks like, and hopefully we can deliver before the end of the year. We will be having a super discussion with Amanda. So Amanda Young is an expert in the superannuation industry. So she will be giving us tips, I think 5 or 4 tips on superannuation. And then we'll be talking to someone from the ATO about registering your business. So doing the ABN number and what that looks like, and how to find what business category you come under as well, which is one of those things that I did struggle with at the start because I'm like going, there's a lot of different registration categories. And then we've got some regional business pop-ups that hopefully we're going to be doing in Mildura and Echuca, pending COVID. I feel like I'm always saying pending COVID. And then in Echuca, we also have a youth business discussion with the Byron mentoring program. So hopefully we can get out to do some of that as well. So feel free to watch our socials and join us. And if you want to find out more information on them, definitely reach out, and we're happy to point you in the right direction or have that conversation with you. And added support we're excited about also launching is dialing an auntie for your business. So having those conversations about your business is really tough and lonely sometimes. So it doesn't matter what stage you're at. We have an auntie for everyone. So we're compiling a list of amazing business owners that we know and have done business with previously. And they are coming on as the aunties that you can kind of ring and have a one-on-one yarn with. But make sure you have to be registered on our database. So send us a link and with your business logo and your details, and that way our auntie will have information on your business as well before having that conversation, because it makes it a little bit easier when you're referring to your business and your auntie knows what it's all about. So we just kind of got bored with the terminology of mentoring and business mentoring and finding a mentor. So we all ring our aunties for our support and guidance in our normal lives. So we've got aunties in our business life as well. So that's why we've called it Dial an Auntie. So thank you, Sarah, for coming along today and joining us, and hopefully everyone's got a lot out of it. Make sure if you want to book in with a one-on-one session with Sarah, let us know. Follow the links and we will get you in touch. Make sure you register your business with our business directory so other Indigenous women can find you on our platform. But definitely feel free to like, share and utilise all of our services. So thank you.